blockers is on the menu for the Pathfinder or Pathways challenges. Um, I have to eliminate blockers. So I have to count on getting a lobby where the opponents are actively sending blockers. And hopefully they're into the sending of small blockers. So don't know what's going to happen. I love the fact that my challenges are all dependent upon RNG. And I think that honestly, that's one of the aspects of the challenges slash bounties that I've never enjoyed is I don't like taking a challenge where random chance plays such a big part in getting the right enemies or adversaries and or targets. Like if you have to if you have to get fallen, but you end up getting nothing but vex or scorn. So although scorn I think should count. I don't know. It's kind of like I've often said that I think that gameplay, and this is an old definition that I've had for some time, actually taken from a game designer's essay. Gameplay comes from players choosing to take on a challenge for education, for training, for entertainment, which are the three forms of media exchange that you go for on the most part. And I like the idea that we could decide, we could pick our own challenges. Um, but I've often been a big proponent of, how about, custom bounties? I've talked about this before, where you could you could say, okay, well, I have to get hand cannon kills. Okay, so you pick, well, actually, no, you start off with like a very generic form, like must get a number of kills, right? And you pick the number, 15, 25, 50, 100, whatever. And based upon what you pick, it would determine what kind of loot table you go into, pool of rewards. And it would be, it would incentivize you to be more specific and persnickety about it. But you could then pick the activity you want to do the challenge in, which means that if you decide to say, I must kill 150 Cabal, then you could pick Cabal strikes, not from the playlist, but from anywhere. And you can even do a raid that has Cabal in it if you wanted to. And that would give you, a set reward based upon that. And you know what your reward's going to be when you start the challenge, you start the bounty or whatever it is. So you build your bounty basically, and then you know, go for it. And of course, failing the bounty, you would not be able to build another bounty for, say, I don't know, a couple hours, a few hours. There has to be some kind of balance effect in there that it is typically punish you for not completing something, because I see that a lot in this game lately. That there's a high punitive level of fuckery that goes on when you don't finish through with something. And I do find that it's a bit, snarky, and I don't really consider it to be very player friendly. In fact, I have not found much of Destiny beyond what I play to be very player friendly. Uh, and I know it's just probably, the fact that I am an older player of the game, been playing it since Destiny 1 on launch, which of course means that, I've played it only a few months later than the guys who started playing on the alpha test, which I didn't even know there was an alpha test. Chances are I probably would have gone for it because, up until Destiny's 2 Forsaken, I was a big fan of Bungie Studio. I thought that everything they did was in the interest of the player. And I like the idea that we make games we want to play, and that's fine. But over the course of 10 years, a studio can change culturally such that, the games they want to play could change. I mean, if you think of just a basic office environment, when you join an office pool, whether you're a secretary or, a file clerk or whatever you want to call yourself, it might be one of those offices where, casual Friday includes, short shorts and Hawaiian shirts. But over the course of 3 or 4 years worth of, involved, uh, involved, um, over the course of 3 to 4 years of administrative changes and even just employee changes, that cultural aspect of that office might also change. Instead of being short shorts and Hawaiian shirts, casual Friday might just be pantsuits and t-shirts, um, and that's a significant change. And it feels to me that that's what's gone down with the Bungie environment is that they've made so many staff changes over the last 7 years that the games that they want to play, has changed significantly. It seems they're pushing for that envelope of, an esport high competitive environment, where it's everybody against everybody, regardless of what you're doing, even in cooperative play. And I've played tabletop games that are supposed to have been cooperative, but then, also incentivize players to play against each other to a certain perspective. And they're not fun experiences. They really aren't. Mostly because it brings out a part of me that I'm not proud of. I am a competitive person. I am a competitive player. I like to find environments that are challenging to me. Give me a minute. But not to the point where it feels like, a loss is feels like a waste of time. I don't mind losing so long as I've learned something. When I lose and I don't learn anything from it, I feel as though my effort was just a waste, and I don't want to keep engaging in that content or that effort. So think of it like, there's a reason why I don't play Super Mario Brothers anymore. I know that's like a really baby game compared to many people's opinions these days, but there's a point in the game where it stops being fun for me because I don't have the physical reflexes to, or the mental acumen to memorize the falling of every block and the swinging of every fire chain or the pop of every lava blast. Uh, and especially when it comes to the boss fights, I know they're all rote. At a certain point, you're just following a pattern and you get there. It's kind of like, solving the Rubik's Cube. You just memorize these five algorithms, these patterns, and then you can solve the cube in any state. And a lot of video gaming is just that. It's just pattern recognition and then solving it. But there's enough variance nowadays in video games that even if you go through the pattern, you understand what the priorities are, what the target priorities are, and all that stuff. Your teammates might not have that same information. They may not have that same experience. Your opponents may not have that same information or experience. There might be some oddball, off the wall strategy you haven't learned yet. The variation goes to be so much that you really are playing a game of random chance. I might as well sit at a table of blackjack where I at least have a higher chance of earning, a week's worth of income in a hand or two of card games and still have an enjoyment, even if I don't win. I find playing cards to be fun regardless. So, point I was trying to make. Ah, I don't like it when variation or randomness becomes too much of a factor in the game. It's this swinginess, is what they call it in game design. If like the D20 has a broad range. It gives you a lot of variance, but I think rolling a D20 to hit a target is way too much variation, especially if you're supposed to be this trained fighter combatant, that's actually, excuse me, uh, you know, learned to do what you're doing. When you play D&D, even if you're a quote unquote super peasant, you don't choose to go out there and fight off bad guys, to defend your village as a militiaman right off the bat. You do have some training. I mean anybody can swing a sword, but only those with practice and training can actually land a definitive blow. So when you play as a guardian in this game, you have these skills. You're supposed to have these abilities, and that's great and everything like that. But when it comes to the loot table, it's like, I don't know, randomized loot just feels cheap. And this week, mostly this is tie up this point because I'm starting to feel my cold a bit more. The loot. we're supposed to have double Nightfall rewards. So I've been getting mostly enhancement cores and not even really that many exotic gear. I have yet to get the Nightfall weapon. I've played close to 2 dozen Nightfalls this week alone, which is more than I've ever played a Nightfall. And I'm not feeling it, man. I'm really just kind of wondering what's the point. I got to that. I got to that position. I got to that point in my gameplay with Destiny. I'm like, what's the fucking point? It just doesn't make any sense to keep pushing. So that's that. I don't know. This video went off the rails. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out, putting up with my rant. Till next time, be well and play nice.